Hi, everybody, and welcome to INE Live. Today is Tech Tuesday. I'm your host, Catherine Brown. We're so glad you're with us today. Love to see all of you guys getting involved in chat. Got a couple first timers in here. Good morning to you, Ruyo, Nick Barker. Glad you can join us today live. Thanks to all of you for being here. Today we are talking about Python, what it is, how we use it here in INE, and how you can best be using it to achieve your career goals and your professional goals. First, set you up here as we do each week. Each time we stream here on INE Live, I want to let you know we are streaming live right now across social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe on the social media platform you're using so you can stay in the loop when we do get live, get those notifications, and be sure to catch all of our live streams. We want you to get involved. Talk to us, talk to each other. We love to see you guys all chatting with each other and answering each other's questions there in chat. We're monitoring chat here at INE. If you have a comment, go ahead and drop it in. If you have a question, please put Q at the beginning of it so we can go get to those questions easily and find all of them. We will get to as many as we can today. We are joined by Martine Zugnoni. Really great episode coming at you today. Martine is the Director of Software Development here at INE, a co-founder of Remoter, a familiar brand to many of you guys who are watching. It was acquired by INE back in 2019. So it's been part of the family for a few years now. Martine is absolutely brilliant when it comes to Python. Martine, thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, Catherine. Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. All right. Well, so let's just get started. Let's get to know you a little bit, Martine. Can you just start off by giving us a little bit of background? What got you started in where you are today, kind of your journey there at Remoter and how you got over to INE?
It's a very long story. Are you sure you want to go all that time
The whole thing,
behind
Martine, the
notes?
whole thing. But don't start with
So
well, on
about
the day I
Python
was born. You
personally,
can skip that part.
I started with Python probably 12, 13 years ago back in college. So a long, long time ago. I actually got engaged by one of my colleagues. We were working on a project together at that time in college, and I remember it was an electronic voting machine for internal elections in the university. The project was completely in Python. I didn't have any experience with Python at that time. And my colleague told me, okay, here you have. Uh, he gave me a Python book, read it during the weekend, and we get started next week. And so that was my first approach to Python. After that, the project was like, I don't know, 6 months probably, and it was very hard for me to get away from Python. It was my main and my favorite language since then.
So I want to jump in there a little bit. So someone just handed you a book on Python, totally relatively foreign to you. What were your first thoughts just as you began to sit down and read?
Well, at that time, again, 12 years ago, right? A long time ago, Python wasn't so popular as it is today. I remember back in those days, there was a very tight battle between Ruby and Python, especially back in the monolithic systems times. You had either Ruby on Rails or Python Django, and again, the community was totally divided at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it was a little bit of a bet. I chose Python, and today it was a very good decision, I think. But at that time, I didn't know. It was either what do we do? Do we use Ruby, Python? What do we do? And again, it was basically I got engaged by this colleague, and he basically forced me to do the decision. But I'm thankful today. It was a great decision, I think.
Yeah, we're also thankful because I know you've brought a lot of that knowledge to a lot of people. All right, so talk to me a little about Remoter. How did that journey begin?
So we were in college with my co-founder Santiago. I've been always related to education in general. I've been teacher in the university, uh, in a couple of different lectures. But at that time, we started to teach programming online. So I think we started teaching on site with a small group of people in the university. And at some point, we decided to move online. There wasn't any Zoom or Meet at that time. Again, it was something like 2014, I think.
Back in the olden days.
Um, Yeah, the old era. And we started to teach online. We got a lot of people engaged. Every batch there were more and more people attending to the classes. Uh, and at some point we kind of started creating content on top of that, creating platforms. And after fast forwarding a little bit, after 3 4 years, we merged into INE, and we kept growing content and platform and everything from within the company.
So let's shift to that part of the conversation now. Let's talk about Python at INE. And I guess just jump right into it. When did INE really start using and embracing Python? And as far as the tech stack goes, is it 100% Python based?
It is not. Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, there was an inflection point in INE's history, and the merge with Remoter, or the merge of Remoter into INE, was the inflection point when basically we switched from a completely PHP based stack back in days of all the time until 2019 2020. Um, so let me do a brief summary of Remoter. Remoter was completely Python based. The content we taught at that time was completely Python based. The tools we taught, libraries, everything was in Python. The tech stack we had was Python as well. And there was a development team highly specialized in Python. So when we merged into INE, basically Remoter had pretty much the same dev size as INE had with PHP at that time. So we basically ended up with 50% of PHP, 50% Python. And at that time, 2 years ago around, INE was transitioning from a monolithic based architecture, where maybe we can explain a little bit what is monolithic. Uh, Basically, in a monolithic architecture, you have just a handful of very big systems that do everything. They have a lot of responsibility, they have a lot of features, they help to different departments, they do everything in a single system. We were transitioning from that into what we have today. Maybe today we're getting out of that a little bit, but we were transitioning into a microservices architecture, where it is exactly the opposite thing. You have many small services with very narrowed responsibility, like small scope. And back in the days when remote showing INE, basically we were transitioning from there, and we took the chance to rewrite a little bit a couple of those systems or functionality into smaller services. And for that we use Python. So we had a few PHP services, a few Python services. Right now, I'd say it's probably 50-50. Um, yeah, and we have the team size pretty much the same for Python and PHP, so it's working perfectly fine. Maybe with the recent acquisition of Pentester Academy, the Python side is a little bit bigger, because PTA, as we call it, Pentester Academy, has a lot of Python code as well. But yeah, for sure it's not completely Python. We have a handful of different technologies going on, PHP and Python being the most used ones.
So it would seem like a lot of companies are in the same position that INE is in, right? Where you've got a couple different languages that you're merging together. So how do you handle two different tech stacks like PHP and Python coexisting within the same company? What are some of the challenges and some of the strategies that you can use to work around some of those challenges?
Well, with the microservices architecture, it's very simple, because each microservice is completely independent from each other. So the small system can be managed and developed by any of the teams independently from the other. They can work with the language they want, they can work with any library, frameworks, tools they want. They're not affecting the other team or the others team. And as long as they have a clear API to communicate between them, well documented, and there is a clear contract between each of the services, that's fine. It's every system is a black box. It doesn't matter to the other teams how they work, how they are working internally, or how we are managed, how they are managed, as long as the interaction works well. So yeah, it's not an issue, to be honest. Each team works independently in any of the assigned systems we have, and yeah, we could potentially add more languages if we need, and as long as we keep this microservices uh, ecosystem we have in the company, that's totally fine. Of course, for many different reasons, it's not good to have so many languages, right? Because especially for hiring or processes within the company, conventions, a lot of things. It's better to have just a few technologies because it's better to be very good at those technologies instead of trying to be good at many more. But yeah, it hasn't been a problem so far.
So I'm curious, when someone comes onto the team, right? If they say they're very familiar in one of the languages, like PHP or Python or something else, how challenging is it to upskill them, I guess, to help them learn a new language? Is it like learning a completely new language, or are there some transferable skills there that you can learn easily?
No, usually we hire people to be integrated in one of the teams, either PHP or Python. Historically, INE has been hired uh, experienced people, usually senior or senior developers. So usually the onboarding process is very smooth. They know the technology already. We have a couple of weeks of ramping up the new developer into all the systems we have, the processes we have, the development process, and after 1 2 weeks they are ready to go. They can start writing code without any issues. But yeah, no, we don't have a lot of cross moving between those teams because it's not that common to find a developer that knows Python and PHP at the same time. So usually we either hire for PHP or for Python.
Gotcha. Okay, that was just a question that I had going into it as a novice Python non-expert here. You are
No,
definitely
it's totally fine.
so why I know
It's
you
not the
said
same case for other technologies like front end, technologies like JavaScript. We have a whole JavaScript team as well, and it is more common to hire a what we call a full stack developer that knows both front end and back end. So usually, for example, if they are full stack where the backend part is Python, maybe they know both Python and JavaScript. So in that case, it could be possible to maybe switch between teams, but again, it's not very common for us.
I see. Okay, so I know you answered this a little bit at the beginning, but I want to dive just a little bit deeper into why Python and not other languages. I mean, you said you got involved in it because basically someone handed you a book and you sat down and started reading. But for you and for many others, like why Python and not some other language?
Yeah. So for INE specifically, it was kind of a coincidence, right? Because with the merge of Remoter, there was like a big team of developers already. They are available, very very specialized in Python. So it was a no-brainer to start using Python as a technology. But if you ask me personally, if I have to start today, or maybe if I have to advise my little daughter, to start learning some programming language, uh, I still think Python is a great option. It's for many reasons. Um, First of all, the adoption and the community over time, if you check over the past 10 years probably, uh, the adoption has been growing and growing every year. Especially, I don't know, 5 7 years ago when all the data science world started to grow around Python. with a couple of big tools and frameworks like TensorFlow, Keras, big companies supporting, let's Facebook and Google behind those frameworks, and all the tools we have like Pandas for data analysis. The ecosystem is great right now, and it's growing and growing every year. If you compare that to other languages, back to the comparison I did at the beginning with Ruby, for example. If you look the trend of Ruby compared to Python over the past 10 years, it's rural. It's the difference now compared to what it was back in 2010. It was it's terrible. So again, I'd say community and how the market is growing around Python is one of the main reasons why I would recommend Python. But there is something else that I think is one of the things that made me basically fall in love with Python back in the days, and is that it's so flexible to do anything you want. Python is you can use Python for pretty much everything, from web development, building APIs to IoT or data analysis, data science, machine learning. Um, you can do pretty much everything you want, and that's one of the things that makes Python so interesting for me and for many people out there, right?
So, got some great questions coming in from our audiences watching on our various social media channels. I want to get to one because it's very it's timely. It relates exactly to what we're talking about. This is Sack Cyber Tech asks, how powerful is Python versus the rest of the programming language? So when you have to tee it up head to head, how
No, it
powerful?
depends. You can't do that. You can't compare languages in that way. You need to give a little bit more of context
Mhm.
of what you want to do, right? It's like comparing two cars. It depends. Do you prefer a truck or a race car? It depends. Are you in a truck, or do you need to do some work in at home, whatever. So it depends, depending on what you need to do. And again, the good thing about Python is the flexibility. Python is maybe not the best for some specific thing, but it's very good for a lot of things. So when you put that in the scale, it makes Python a very interesting option.
All right. So to drill down on that a little bit more, we have another question. This is from, I'm going to try to get this right. XYZ123636. Great name. So they ask, is Perl better or is Python when it comes specifically to network engineers?
Is what? I didn't see a question, sorry.
Perl better or Python?
Oh, well, I would prefer Python. Actually, we do have a lot of Python for networking content at INE. Maybe you guys can check out. But yeah, I would prefer Python. But I have a little bit of bias in the decision, probably.
All right, so let's talk a little about Python specifically at INE and get into that more. What specifically? How does INE use Python and harness all the power and all the possibilities and opportunities that it offers?
Yeah. So back to what I said before. As you can use Python for many different things, we at INE use Python for a lot of things. We starting from web development, writing APIs, there are a couple of amazing tools like Django and Django REST framework. We use REST APIs in all of our systems. And in the Python side, we use Django REST framework. It's basically a library on top of Django. Django is the most popular web framework for Python, and it's amazing. It saves us a lot of time. Again, it's a library to build REST APIs in Python, uh, and you don't have to care about good conventions and all of that. Everything is resolved already by the library. So basically, you use the library. You can either do everything in detail by hand, customizing everything, or in a couple of lines, you get a fully functional API. It's amazing. So it has the whole um, the whole list of options, either customizing everything or doing it fast, with the out of the box functionality that the library offers. That's one part. Web development. We do a lot of scripting and automation. That's another thing that I didn't mention before, but it's super important in Python. uh, Python has this amazing thing of open a terminal, and start writing code right away. Of course, without compiling, without anything, which makes it super fast and fun to use. So scripting and automation, either I know web scraping, a lot of things you can do with Python. We do a ton of data analysis and basically, yeah, statistical analysis internally in our team. We have a whole Jupyter notebooks environment internally that we use to connect to the different systems and do analysis, basically to understand how our students consume our content, how they use the platform, which of course makes us take good decisions for the new features that are coming, new functionalities we're adding to the platform and everything. So yeah, web development first, data analysis, probably scripting, automation, and we are playing a little bit with machine learning, starting to do a couple of things with that. There's going to come in the future for sure, with Python as well. Uh, so yeah, a lot of things.
What kind of things can you do when it comes to machine learning with Python? And just because I happen to be very interested in the machine learning area, so what kind of possibilities are there?
It's endless. Specifically for our niche, for education, is super interesting. We are aiming to implement a few solutions that basically uh, help our students to find the best way to get from the point E where they start at INE. Imagine you got join INE, you log in, you create an account today, and your goal in X time is to get a CCNA certification from Cisco, something like that. Of course, at IE, you have the whole career path to learn everything from zero to the certification. But the starting point from you and from me probably is different, right? So the learning path for you and for me probably should be different, and it should be presented in a different way when you access the platform and when I access the platform. But the question is, how can we do it? Of course, it's not scalable to do it in a manual way, right? To evaluate manually every single case. So we need to find a way to say, okay, CAD is joining. Let's do like a quick test or a quick assessment of what's your initial status for your networking knowledge. And we know that your target is the CNA certification. Okay, from your knowledge until this certification, what content can you skip? What content you can't skip because you don't know it? So what's the optimal path for you from A to B? That's something we can do with machine learning. We're doing some tests. It's something that is going to come in the future. It's very, very exciting because at the end of the day, you're optimizing the learning process for students. So you're saving his time and money. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, I'm super fascinated in the whole machine learning area and just all the possibilities, everything that you can do, and just I feel like it's one of those areas where we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what is possible, and there's just so many
There is
opportunities.
one very important thing that before you can even start thinking about machine learning, you need to collect a ton of data because machine learning, systems learn with data, and you have to train them. And to train them, you have to provide data and have a ton of data, like sample data, to train the model. So it's you need to, if you want to implement machine learning next year, you should start today collecting data. That's basically what you have to do. So it's uh, Yeah, that's what we, and when I say collecting data, it's trying to understand what users are doing in our platform, how they use it, um, uh, and trying to get those events in our platform so we can train the model for the future and do what we want, what we're aiming for.
So, question coming in just now from Nick Barker. Thanks for the question, Nick. He asks, can you give some examples of tasks you were able to automate using Python at INE or in your personal experience?
Yeah, anything you can. I mean, anything from daily or weekly reports that we need to send internally or to specific customers. Um, there are so many examples. Any task that you can do manually, there is a high chance that you can automate that in Python with just a couple of lines. So yeah, there are so many examples. We use it a lot, and for example, web scraping. That's a very good example as well. If you need to, I don't know, find certain patterns or information in websites or anything, or if you need to process a CSV file that you downloaded from somewhere. Uh, there are very simple Python scripts that will help you to do that. And usually, once I personally find that I repeatedly do the same task over and over again, I immediately say, okay, this is a good use case for Python script. It takes some time to get the script running, but once the script is running, you're totally free, and the script will do the job for you.
They say that's the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again. Just kidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll drive you insane, right? That's why we have Python, so we can stop doing that all the time. All right, cool. Let's talk about the development cycle a little bit with Python. What does it look like?
Okay, the development cycle is very similar for PHP and Python at INE. We even though we have two different stack and technologies working in parallel, the whole development cycle is the same, right? The dev team is one at the end of the day, so we share everything, but the technology is everything else. So we use a traditional Scrum dev cycle. It's very common. We have usually the C-level team defining what are the goals, new features coming into the platform, together with the head of product that we have. We break that down into epics or milestones that we need to do over time. We do regular planning meetings with the devs. We basically break one more time those big epics into uh, assignables tickets. And basically, we estimate how much effort or time that will take, and we plan our sprints. We use 2 week sprints. That is a little bit different from one team to the other. When sometimes we use 1 week sprints or 2 week sprints. Uh, it depends. One team maybe releases more often once the feature is ready. Another team releases to production once the sprint is finished. But yeah, we have freedom between, we call them squads, the Python squad and the PHP squad. And even though we follow all the same rules, we have freedom we have team managers in each of the teams, and each of the team managers decides the very specific details of how they want to use it. But in general terms, it's a Scrum. Yeah, it's regular traditional Scrum methodology.
All right, so I want to take us back just a little bit to when we were talking about um, some of the different microservices a few minutes ago. And V1 Natami, hope I pronounced that right, asked a question that I want to circle back to. It says, what programming standards like JSON are most valuable when communicating between microservices of different programming languages?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah, JSON is not a programming language. It's more like a transport layer between those services, right? And we use JSON as as this communication channel between those services. Um, Communication between microservices is probably the more difficult part, and the more chaotic part once the architecture grows and grows, because again you have all the information spread across different services, and maybe you need to do something, but all the information you need is not in the system you're targeting. It's spread across 5, 10 different services. So communication is crucial, and it's very hard. Um, and yeah, we use JSON for that. But I don't remember the question exactly. Was it? Do we use JSON or?
Yeah, let me go back here. Let me go back here and pull it up very quickly. Yeah, what programming standards are most valuable when it comes to communicating
Oh
between the
yeah,
microservices of the
yeah.
program?
No, I would say it doesn't matter too much what transport layer you use or what language you use to communicate. What is very important is what I said before of having a clear, we call it contract. It's like making it very clear for every service how the API to use that service is, what authentication and permission mechanisms we have, where are the endpoints available. Again, everything you need to know to use the service. In the same way as when you use the Twitter API, you have a clear documentation of all the methods available. If you have this role, you can do this. If you have that role, you can do that. Um, the same thing for all of the services we have. And the good thing about microservices is, which is probably one of the main advantages, is that uh, not always all the different services scale in the same way. So, for example, I know one of the services we have is the content manager that we use internally. The content team uses to manage the content at INE. The content manager will not scale in the same way as the main authentication system we use, right? That is constantly hit by thousand users every day. If you have everything in a single monolithic system, either you scale everything or you don't, right? So, and if you scale, you're paying a lot of money in infrastructural costs, and if you don't, maybe you can't cope with the traffic. So with smaller microservices and a more granular architecture, we can do that. We can scale services differently, and that's a very important feature of this architecture we're using.
All right, question coming in from Nick Barker, who, by the way, in chat just coined the phrase Pythonista. So I'm going to expect that to be on a shirt that you wear next time you're on one of these episodes, Martin. Pythonista. That's so Nick
I
asks,
like it. I like it.
right? It's the new phrase. All right. So Nick says, I see your bookshelf is filled with all the fun books. Do you feel that leveraging statistics is important to become a high level programmer?
Statistics is very important for life in general, for any decision you want to take. For programming, exactly, depends on the vertical you're targeting. If you're doing web development, maybe stats is not very important. But for anything related to data analysis or data science in general, it's fundamental. I'd say it's one of the first thing you will need to learn before you get started. It's
Fundamental,
like the
right?
foundations,
It's a
it's the
foundation. Yeah,
foundations. Everything is
right.
on top of that.
Gotta have it.
And it doesn't matter if you use Python or any other language, R or any other tools. Statistical, theory is the baseline for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. All right. So a lot of questions coming in. Very popular question for people who want to get started in Python, whether they've been working in programming but not using Python, but or they're just starting out. So someone wants to learn Python. Where do they start?
Okay, so first of all, I think it's a good decision. So move forward, try to learn. Um, there are a ton of books. Today, if you want to learn, I think there is so much information online that it's harder to try to filter the information rather than find the information. So I'd say start with any of the most popular books. There is one that is called Python for Everyone, which is even translated to so many languages. So you can find the book in your native language if you want, and read that. That's the first step. There are so many free material online, either YouTube or so many other places, and also I have to say we have a free offering as well, the starter pass. We have a development career path or learning path that you can follow. We have amazing Python instructors there teaching Python. Some of them were former remoter team members as well, so I know them very much. And yeah, many of them are available for free in our starter pass, so you can go to ine.com and just sign up and start learning there.
Yeah, and Cyber Lola is dropping some links into our YouTube chat right now, with links to everything Python related on the INE platform, Python for Pen Testers course at Pentester Academy, which of course INE recently acquired within the last few weeks. So definitely, if you're interested in getting started in that, or just learning a little bit more about what INE offers when it comes to Python, check out those links on YouTube that Cyber Lola has just posted. Quick question from Stefan, watching on YouTube. Stefan, thanks for the question. He's looking for some advice. I've just started the CCNA path. Should I start in the same time the Python courses, or wait and finish the CCNA course first and then continue with Python?
No, if you can, I mean, depending on your availability, of course, and the time you have. But a scripting language like Python for networking, it's super useful. So if you can getting started with Python in parallel, and trying to learn, because programming in general and any language is not something that you can learn overnight. You need to start slowing. It's like learning a language. You can't sit for 1 month, 24 hours a day, and start speaking Japanese. I don't know. It takes time. It needs to consolidate in your mind, and the sooner you start, the better.
Great advice. Super interesting information today, Martine. Before we wrap it up, just want to throw it out to you to see if there's anything else that you wanted to mention, anything you want to bring up, or just advice that you want to give to our audience when it comes specifically to the application of Python.
No, again, I'm a little biased here, but I would advise everybody to at least check Python, and maybe you already have a main language like JavaScript, which is massively adopted. Um, the the thing that makes me feel so good about Python is this possibility of wherever you go, uh, anything you do, pretty much everything, there is Python support. Even we were playing the other day with the Ethereum blockchain. The Ethereum is this cryptocurrency. Uh, you can connect to the blockchain with Python. There is one Web3 Pi client that has a lot of contributions, and you can connect to the blockchain with Python. So again, I like to do this analogy of Python being kind of the English of the languages. You guys are so lucky that wherever you travel, everybody speaks English, right? My native language is Spanish, and I've been speaking English for so many years, and I can barely speak now. Because it's still I still need some extra, a little bit effort of my mind to speak English wherever I go. But on the other hand, when you travel anywhere, you can speak English natively. With Python, it's the same. You have one main language, Python, and wherever you go, you can speak Python because there is support everywhere.
Interesting analogy. I like it. I like it. Before we wrap up, I do one more quick question just popped in on LinkedIn, so I just want to get to this because we have just a little extra time. Real quick, Martine, do you see the benefit in using C language over Python for networking automation?
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that I said before when I said it depends on what you're doing uh, to see if Python is the best option or not. If you want to do something very, very specific for networking, I don't know, rewriting the middleware of a router, something like that, or something very, very low level, very specific, probably C or C++ is a better option. But again, it's a niche, it's very specific. Um, and I would say it's not comparable to Python in that case because again, you're working on something very, very specific where probably Python is not the best option.
Awesome. All right. Thank you for that, Martine. Thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it and your expertise. I know I've learned a ton, and I hope our audience has as well. Love to see a very engaged chat today. So thank you, Martine. Again, thanks for being here today. Go learn Python,
Thank
right?
you, Catherine. Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, that wraps up today's stream. If you missed it live, be sure to look for the replay across our social media channels and on the INE website. You can look for us again live 1 week minus 1 day from today. So next week is Thanksgiving week. So instead of Tech Tuesday, we will be doing a Tech Monday. That will be Monday, November 22nd. We will have a special Thanksgiving week Tech Tuesday. We're hosting a fireside chat AMA, so bring all your good questions. We'll have more details in the next couple days. Be sure to like and subscribe on the social media platform you're using so you can stay in the loop when we do post details on this upcoming Tech Monday. We'll call it Tech Monday. And then you'll get the notifications when we go live. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Until then, have a great week.